Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. My guest today is Callie Buchholtz, who is the Director of Resource Development for Support Raising Solutions. And I am having a little bit of fun with her by not telling her our topic today. It just seemed right to do it this way because, unfortunately, Callie, I tend to just kind of drop bombs on you sometimes. I'm like, hey, can you help this? Or what is this? Or can you get me an answer for this? And you give me this very kind smile of, again, Aaron.
I'm getting more and more nervous.
Well, here's the deal with this one. The reason I wanted to wait and not tell you what we were talking about in advance is because I didn't actually come up with this one. This is a user email, so to speak. Someone sent this question in and said, could you please talk about this topic? And
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We've started to get some of those. So before we jump into it, I first wanted to say, hey, listener, friend, we like to answer your questions. In fact, we love to get your questions. We can't promise that we will answer all of your questions, but as long as it's not too personal or too political, we might take a shot at it. So,
oh boy.
Callie, are you ready for our question today? And by the way, anything that I ask of you, it's fair for you to push it back at me, and we can bat it around. So I don't expect you to be the only person just kind of winging it on this particular podcast.
I feel like I'm obligated to say yes because I'm already sitting here in front of the microphone.
Amen. Okay, so here we go. How do you distance yourself from a monthly supporter who takes up more of your time than they are worth?
Ooh.
Now, that's a difficult question because the person's value, their worth came into it. So I think I ducked a little bit, but I think I also understand the heart of where it's coming from. And the person that sent that in also said, I have a donor who contacts me with every little disappointment that they have with the communication about this ministry, tries to get me involved in solving problems that don't have anything to do with my ministry's vision, and expect a quick response, quicker than what I have the time to give to, because it distracts me from what the right thing to do is for the ministry at that moment. All right, first of all, I wanted to say that's not necessarily, this isn't all negative. There might be some challenges here. We'll get into that. But first of all, let me just say it's great that your supporter is communicating with you. Yay, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else might be good going on here, Callie?
Well, I know I always encourage people to minister to their ministry partner team. And a lot of times you're at a loss of, I have no idea what they need, what I can offer. You're just kind of at loose ends. So here at least there is an opportunity for you to speak into their life.
Yep. Okay. And there might be a longer list, but it's hard to think of them right now, given the tone of the question. So let's kind of dig into where the challenges lie in here. So first of all, what jumped out at you from this particular question?
Well, I think the first question that I wanted to respond to a question with is looking at just kind of the issue of boundaries. This isn't unique to your partners in ministry. You can have just a friend do this.
Yeah, that's true.
The overstepping their boundaries, taking a lot of your time to the extent that it starts to feel claustrophobic, suffocating, stifling. And how do you deal with that?
Yep. One thing within that too that there was at least a sense of is over communication. You can sometimes have people that they want you to reply quickly. They want you to always respond. And by the way, I'm usually that person. I'm the one who is usually waiting on other people. So that's I'm not telling on other people. I can do that. I can communicate really quickly and hope to get a response and things like that. But I guess the point is this. Coming back to what you said with boundaries is it's great that there's communication, but what is the expectation? Is it a fair expectation? And for the sake of this conversation, really this person is talking about a supporter. So let's define a supporter, first of all, before we go too much further, because people can sometimes approach they might call it a donor, they might call it a supporter, or they might call it a number of different things. But for the sake of our conversation, Callie, how would you define a supporter of you in a full-time ministry role?
It would be someone that is a part of my ministry that is giving financially on a recurring basis.
And what about the spiritual aspect of that?
Well, I would hope it's something I can't guarantee because I'm not in their house with them, but they're praying for me. They're wanting to be involved in what I'm doing, and they share this vision for what God is doing.
Yeah, yeah. And so having somebody that's interested, that's actually a good thing. We don't want to treat people like they're just an ATM machine,
right.
that they're disconnected. It's actually nice sometimes when people have questions, because that might indicate to you that you need to communicate a little bit more clearly about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so I really do appreciate the question that got sent in, and there does seem to be some flashing lights of it that are of issue in here. But what I didn't want to be guilty of in us talking about this is somehow making it sound like you can tell that supporter, well, that's none of your business. Just give us your money.
Oh, no. Oh, dear. That's a fast way to have no supporters.
Yeah. That being said, and you already began to touch on this, sometimes there can be expectations, or there can be thoughts or just a number of different things that could potentially come in that might not be that healthy. And for the sake of not just this question, but to kind of zoom out a little bit more, that can happen. Mm-hmm. That can happen where somebody who's even is a supporter, not just a friend, but they feel like it's their job to tell you what to do or what not to do, and you need to fall in line. Have you ever experienced anything like that yourself?
Well, I've definitely had one or two supporters that have very specific expectations for what it means for me to communicate well with them. And some of those are really easily managed, and it just takes a small amount of time to make a world of difference to them. And I know their expectations, and that you're easily handled. I would say in other points, I've heard, especially with churches, that have specific requirements for you to support them, which is great because it is so clearly spelled out usually. But it's something you have to weigh and see. That's a lot of requirements for, is that going to fit in my work and my travel and my ministry?
Right.
And suddenly you can be asking the question, how is that going to work with my time?
Yeah.
And it's a similar question of time and value.
Yes. And we do, by the way, we want you to have some local churches on your support team.
100%.
But that doesn't mean that every local church who might be willing to partner with you is going to be a good fit. Just like every person who might potentially be able to be a good ministry partner with you, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a good fit. Just because they have money and the ability to give it might not be enough of a good sense of camaraderie and doing the ministry together. And so with that in mind, back to this original question, and it seems like there's something going on here. Callie, you said the word early on. I'm going to go back to it. Boundaries.
Yeah. And that's what I see a lot more is when you get into the sticky reality of relationships. If you're just filling out a form, it's black and white. Oh, I can't meet those expectations. I can't do that. Versus a relationship, it's a lot more involved.
Yeah.
It's a lot more delicate.
It is. So we can both answer this. And Callie, you and I have different personalities, but so we might approach this the same way, we might not. So I'd like to both kind of take an attempt here at saying, so what would you do if this was happening to you? Mm-hmm. So do you want to go first? Sure. So I can be guilty of stealing your answer? Okay.
I'll take a crack.
All right. So what would you do if you had a person who expressed disappointment that you weren't replying fast enough? They were kind of adding to your to-do list of their expectations of how you're supposed to be spending your ministry time. Like, they're just kind of all up in your space in such a way that didn't seem healthy. What would your response be?
My first response to just about everything in life is, I hope you talk to God. I would want to talk to God and figure out, Lord, what is my role that you want me to be speaking into this person's life?
Yeah.
Maybe they are in a place of really needing a high touch point person, someone that they can reach out to very quickly, that will respond quickly. Maybe that is just a very tangible need, and you are the only person that can fill that right now. And that is why God has brought you into this person's life. I want to be sensitive to that and ask God if that is what he's asking me, or if he's asking me to do something really different. So first and foremost, make sure you have a God perspective on what is the bigger picture that could be happening. And then the second thing is communication, and that it breathes into how you handle conflict well, being vulnerable. You don't have to do this perfectly. I don't raise support perfectly. And the amount of conversations that I have opened with, I'm worried you might be sensitive to the topic of finances, and I still want to share my ministry with you and give you an opportunity to be a part of it. But I'm concerned about you being hurt in our relationship, walking away from this. I want to be sensitive for that. And that opened doors. Oh my word. For me to admit I'm not going to do this perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as I would think of a similar situation here of that, you don't have to be absolutely perfect. You can start a conversation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And some of that might be setting some boundaries of, you are a part of me and this is work, and there is things that have to get done. So I won't be constantly available outside of these hours to reply back to you because I have other commitments that you are partnering with me to fulfill. So casting that kind of framework to communicate, hey, these are the limitations. Mm-hmm. Here's when I am available. Mm-hmm. Here's why I'm not available that you know of. You support this vision. You're a part of this.
Right.
So you're on board with this. And
kind of resets the playing field a little bit.
Yeah.
Great. It's important now and then that we mention that we have a resource available to those who help train and coach others that are raising support. The SRS network really isn't for everyone, but it is for those who are seeking to shape direction, build infrastructure, elevate training, and multiply coaching in their ministry culture. We can provide individual or organizational access to other support-raising resources in order to help you help others who are within your ministry. Learn more at supportraisingsolutions.org/network.
Great. So what about you, Aaron?
First of all, I wouldn't disagree with anything you just said, but I think, I don't know if I'd say additionally, and some of this too is as you're praying, I think God sometimes is just going to lead you to react differently, but absolutely communication with this person, over probably face to face or over the phone at the worst. It wouldn't be a text.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get toned wrong.
You don't want to get toned wrong, but I would probably sit down with them and just say, hey, man, I am so thankful that you care, but also. Some of the things that you suggested, those aren't bad things, but those are different from the vision. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to be clear, I won't be pursuing those ideas that you had for me. And quite honestly, I love your partnership in ministry, and I hope you continue to partner, and yet that's not going to be changing anytime recently, meaning I have people that I report to who help set the tone and the direction and the vision of the ministry, and we're all on the same page regarding how I'm supposed to be spending my time, and nothing against your ideas, but some of the things that you've been asking me to do, those are just enough of a variance that those aren't really on par with what God has clearly led me to be doing with my time. All right, the other thing though, that quite honestly, I think people might struggle with in this, and I would hope I would have this heart, is be willing to lose this person as a financial supporter. I mean, the reality is they might just not be that good of a fit to be on your team. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a bad minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's just that they're not a good fit, and some of the things that they're passionate about, that they want you to be working on, that's not what you're supposed to be working on. Mm-hmm. And so they might need to start doing some of that stuff themselves. They might need to find somebody to support who is doing those things. I'm not saying try and get rid of them. It's not a meaning to sit them down and say, you're fired, you don't get to give me money anymore. That's not the point. And yet I think if the goal is, I just got to make sure this person just keeps on supporting me, if that's your goal, you're going to misfire.
Oh yeah.
And suddenly they're going to become an unintentional boss that is pulling you away from the things that are supposed to be spending your time. And so I would say one of the reasons I would want to have a conversation with somebody like this is to even figure out, are they still a good fit to be on my team? And ultimately, I want them to make that decision. But I'm probably going to try and open it up in such a way of, hey, I like you, love you, think you're cool. I'm glad you're on my team. But I want to be clear. How I'm spending my time, it's about this vision and it's about these particular things. And it's not that I don't care about you or your thoughts, but in reality, I can't do all those other things you're hoping that I could do. I just want to make sure that's okay.
Yeah.
And just having that, and they might be like, well, no, that's not okay. You're like, okay, well then God bless you. It's all right. You don't need to be on my prayer and financial support. I hope you still pray for me, but maybe I'm not such a good fit for you. I mean, again, I'm not looking to fire someone, but man, I personally just wouldn't and don't want someone supporting me that in some ways always has access to me, and yet they're always distracting me from how I'm supposed to be spending my time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think an important part of that conversation would be asking questions. What do you see as your role as part of my team? What do you see is reasonable expectations for our communication? Because they might just have this really off picture unintentionally, not realizing it is so different from yours.
Mm-hmm.
So do plan on it being a conversation, not just you speaking the whole time and setting up these really firm boundaries, not even realizing it was just kind of being slightly off step from each other. Maybe it is something really simple as saying, hey, these are the boundaries that I'm going to need so that we can continue doing this in a healthy way to accomplish this vision that we're on board together with.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that puts you in a really healthy place if things maybe spiral down out of this, because you've communicated boundaries. It's then really easy to, in the future, say, hey, this is what we both communicated and understood, and this is where it hasn't happened.
Right.
And that's a lot of a better place to approach any potential future conflict than, okay, things are still weird, or you kind of did this, and I didn't tell you that was going to be a problem, but it is.
Right. Good. Well, I think we've probably talked about this one pretty well, but one other thing that I might want to suggest is, and you started the first thing, I'm taking this to the Lord in prayer, but then also the powers that be within your organization, your supervisor, your boss, whatever you want to call it, I might want to make sure I'm on the same page with them as well before I just go and act. It would be really good on the very off chance, and I wouldn't think it would, but on the very off chance that this kind of blows up a little bit in your face, I would want you to be on the same page with your supervisor, just to make sure that they realize, hey, there's a point of tension. Mm-hmm. Here's my plan of addressing it. Please pray for me.
Oh, yeah.
Here's when the meeting is coming, so that it doesn't catch them sideways and they're like, what? You've
got backup.
Who knows how it gets back to them if it doesn't go well, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, great. Well, Callie, that's it for our podcast today. Just do a little user email response podcast, but I hope to do more of these in the future and to put you on the spot once again sometime soon.
Come on. Maybe warn me next time? Get like a clue word or something?
All right. God bless, Callie. Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.